He told everyone I didn't want it. Not the money, not the land, not the cabin where we spent every summer of our childhood. He looked our cousins in the eye, raised a glass to family harmony, and said I'd given it all up willingly. That was the lie. What really happened? He read the will before I did. Got to the cabin first. Changed the locks. Told the neighbors it was his now. And by the time I found out, there was already a new name on the mailbox. My name's Paul. And this is the story of how my brother stole the place that held every good memory I had left of our dad, and how I took it back without ever laying a finger on him. Dad died in February. It was one of those gray, brittle winters where even the sunlight feels like it's running on empty. Heart attack. No warning. Just one phone call in the middle of the night that turned the rest of my life into before and after. My brother, Joel, handled most of the logistics. He lived closer, had Dad's lawyer on speed dial. And honestly, at first, I was grateful. I was 2 states away, buried in work, trying to keep my own family steady. I thought, let him manage the details. We'll all get through this. And that's how he got away with it. The funeral came and went like a fog. Open casket, closed hearts. Joel gave a speech about legacy and blood and how much Dad valued simplicity. I stood next to him, nodded through the tears, and thought we were on the same team. The will was supposed to be simple. We'd both seen the draft before Dad passed. Everything split 50-50. Money, land, and the cabin, Dad's pride and joy, perched on a bluff above Lake Russell. He built it in his 20s. Hammered every nail himself. Said it was where he went when life got too loud. It was where he took us after Mom left. Where he taught me to fish. Where he cried once, just once, when Joel crashed his truck, and we didn't know if he'd wake up. That cabin was our anchor. But somewhere between the funeral and the official reading of the will, Joel made it his. I didn't find out until June. I was planning a trip up that way, figured I'd take a weekend, bring my son, show him where Grandpa taught me how to skip stones and patch a leaky roof. I called Joel to see if he'd be around. He said, "Oh, you didn't hear?" "Hear what?" "I ended up keeping the cabin. I figured you didn't want the hassle. You said as much at the funeral." I said no such thing. "I mean, not in those words," he added quickly. "But you seem distant. You've got your life, your job. I just figured you'd rather have the cash. So I went ahead and sent your half. Check your email." And just like that, it was done. Joel had already taken charge of things, sold what he could, guessed at what was fair, and acted like we'd agreed on all of it. Then quietly claimed the cabin as his, as if that part had been settled, too. I didn't yell, didn't threaten lawyers. I just stared at the email confirmation, the wire transfer, and the receipt for the new front door lock he'd installed the week after Dad's burial. That's when something shifted in me. Not rage, not revenge, just a kind of cold clarity. He thought he won, but he didn't understand what he'd actually taken and what I was about to get back. Not through force, not through court, through truth, and a story he never thought I'd tell. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, though I was, not because I felt cheated, though I did. I didn't sleep because I couldn't stop replaying the look on Joel's face when he told me, so casually, that he kept the cabin. Like it was a winter coat someone left behind. Like it didn't matter. He said I seemed distant. What he meant was I didn't cry loud enough for the family gallery. Didn't fight over ashes or sermon slots or who got to keep the fishing rods. I grieved in silence. That was always my way. But apparently, to Joel, grief only counted if it came with drama. So he took the silence as surrender. That was his first mistake. His second? He never actually transferred the deed. I found that out the next morning. I called Dad's old lawyer, Gary something, gray beard, used to wear beyond lookout ties and offer licorice like it was currency. Gary remembered me right away. "Paul. Hey. I was wondering when you'd call." That sentence alone stopped me. "I'm sorry." I asked. "Well, it's just, Joel said you weren't interested in being involved. But I kept your copy of the final documents anyway, just in case." I asked him to send everything over. He did. And sure enough, clear as day, the will left the cabin jointly to Joel and me. Not sold, not liquidated, not gifted, jointly. Which meant my brother, my own flesh and blood, had lied to my face, cashed me out behind my back, and pretended it was all done and dusted. But legally, my name was still on that deed. And in that moment, something shifted again. I stopped being the little brother who always let things go. The one who took the smaller piece of pie, the older car, the couch bed at holidays. I stopped being the guy who let Joel narrate the story. And I became the man who was going to reclaim what mattered. Not just a cabin, not just old wood and lake air, but the part of my father's memory that belonged to me. I didn't go straight to the cabin. First, I called the county records office. Asked if there had been any recent filings on parcel 414 to 22, Dad's place. The clerk said, nope. Still shows both Paul and Joel Carmichael on the deed. You looking to update that? I smiled. Not yet. I said, thanks. Then I called the neighbor, old Mr. Delaney, lived 2 lots down. A retired forest ranger with binoculars always around his neck and a gift for gossip. He picked up on the second ring. Paul? That you? I said yeah, and he went on for 10 full minutes about how sorry he was to hear about Dad. Said Joel had been around lately, fixing up the place. Even put in a satellite dish. But I didn't see your truck, he added. Figured you didn't want to be involved. I let that hang in the air a second. Then I said, I've been meaning to come up. He said, you always got a key, son. Still keep a spare in the birdhouse like your dad used to? I froze. You're kidding. Nope, he chuckled. Joel changed the main lock, but the back door is still the same. I guess old habits die hard. And just like that, I had what I needed. 2 weeks later, I took a Friday off work, packed up the truck, brought my son, Ethan, 10 years old, curious heart, always asking questions about the grandfather he barely remembered. I didn't tell him everything, just said we were going to visit the cabin where I used to spend summers. When we pulled into the gravel drive, I saw Joel's new truck parked near the porch. I didn't flinch. Ethan asked, are we supposed to be here? I nodded. More than he is. Joel wasn't home. Probably in town. Maybe buying more junk to make the place look like a rustic Instagram post. He turned the boathouse into a man cave, from what I heard. Had one of those glass beer fridges, full of drinks he never finished. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that the cabin was still ours. Mine. And the key was still in the birdhouse. I unlocked the front door and stepped into air that smelled like cedar, lake water, and ghosts. Ethan ran to the fireplace. Did Grandpa really build this? Every brick. His eyes lit up. I let him explore while I stood in the living room, the same room where Dad read us stories during thunderstorms, where Joel and I carved our names into the windowsill one summer, laughing at how grown up we thought we were. My name was still there. Joel's too. But only one of us had tried to erase the other. Not anymore. Not today. Joel pulled into the driveway around 3:40 that afternoon. I heard his tires on the gravel before I saw his face. Ethan was down by the dock, skipping rocks. I was sitting on the porch steps, just like Dad used to, hands on my knees, watching the lake turn gold in the late-day sun. Joel stepped out of his truck and stopped dead in his tracks. He stared at me like I was a ghost. What the hell are you doing here? I didn't move. Just looked at him. Nice to see you too. He didn't smile. Didn't even pretend. This is private property, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Since when? He looked around, like he wasn't sure if this was a prank or some kind of ambush. You've got no right to be here, Paul. I stood up slowly. I've got every right. You read the will. Same as me. Half yours. Half mine. He scoffed. You forfeited. You said you didn't want anything. No, I said. You said I didn't want anything. There's a difference. He took a step forward, that old fire in his eyes, the same look he used to get when he'd corner me during arguments growing up. Except now? I wasn't 15. I wasn't scared. I was done being quiet. Joel, I know about the wire transfer. I know you cashed me out without asking. I know you changed the locks. And I know you never filed a single change with the county, just acted like it was yours. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You tried to turn a shared inheritance into your solo weekend getaway. You lied to me, to the lawyer, to the family. He looked like he was trying to decide whether to yell or spin another excuse. But I wasn't giving him the space. Check the deed, I said, stepping closer. Still got both our names on it, which means I'm not trespassing. I'm home. He didn't say much after that. Just muttered something about needing to call Gary and slammed his truck door harder than he had to. I watched him pull out again, faster this time. Tires kicking up dust, tail lights flaring like he couldn't get away from me quick enough. Ethan wandered back up from the dock a few minutes later. Was that Uncle Joel? I nodded. Yeah. Is he mad? I took a breath. Maybe. But sometimes people get mad when they're caught doing something wrong. Doesn't mean we back down. He nodded, like he understood more than I expected. Joel didn't come back that night. We stayed, cooked hot dogs over the fire pit, watched the stars come out, slept on the old cots in the loft, same ones we used as kids. Ethan said it was the best night he'd had all year. In the morning, I left a note on the kitchen table. We need to talk. You've got 48 hours to do the right thing before I do it for you. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to fight. I just needed him to make it right, or I'd force it in court and expose every step he'd taken to bury me under his ego. 2 days later, Joel showed up on my front porch. Not at the cabin. At my house. In the city, his eyes looked tired, like he hadn't slept. He didn't bring paperwork, didn't bring an apology either, not in words. He brought a manila envelope. Inside was a signed quitclaim deed. His half, given up. No lawyers, no court, just his signature, and the line that said, for consideration of $1. I looked at him. He shrugged. I figured, you always understood the place better than I did. I didn't say thank you. Didn't offer him coffee. I just nodded, folded the paper, and closed the door. Then I exhaled for the first time in months. It was mine now, not because I fought dirty, but because I fought honest. And sometimes, that's enough. When the deed was signed, it didn't feel like a victory. Not right away. It felt heavy, like inheriting a story that no one else wanted to tell, one with splinters and silences and decades of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table with Joel's quitclaim in one hand and a cold cup of coffee in the other, just staring at the damn thing. My name. Only my name now. On a property that was built with both our childhoods nailed into the walls. Ethan came downstairs rubbing his eyes. He saw the envelope and asked, "Did Uncle Joel give you the cabin?" I told him the truth. He gave me his half, but it wasn't a gift. Ethan blinked. Then why'd he give it up? I thought about that. Thought about the years Joel tried to be Dad's shadow instead of his son. The way he turned grief into control. The way he convinced himself that keeping the cabin meant keeping the legacy. He gave it up because he finally understood it wasn't his to keep alone. I didn't call Joel. Didn't gloat. Didn't ask for closure. I figured the door had closed on its own, soft, but final. But 3 days later, I got a letter. No return address. His handwriting. Inside was a single sheet. I thought I was protecting it, but maybe I was just trying to own something Dad never promised me. You're the only one who still heard his voice in those walls. I didn't. Not really. I just remembered the pressure, not the peace. I stared at those words for a long time. Not an apology. Not exactly. But something honest. And maybe for Joel, that was enough. That weekend, I took Ethan back to the cabin. Just the two of us. No confrontation hanging in the air. No lies on the doorstep. We brought tools, wood stain, and an old box of photos I found in Dad's basement after he passed. Black and white prints of our first summer there. Joel, barefoot and grinning. Me in a too big life jacket. Dad, shirtless, with sawdust on his jeans and pride in his eyes. We hung a few on the wall. Ethan asked, "Can we add our own?" So we did. Took a picture of us rebuilding the front steps together. Printed it out. Framed it next to the old ones. Different generation. Same story. Ours now. I spent most of that Saturday fixing things. The porch railing that had gone soft from rain. The hinge on the boathouse that always squeaked. I even replaced the birdhouse with a new one, but kept the old key inside, wrapped in tape and memory. Later that night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat out on the porch alone. Stars above, quiet all around. And I thought about Dad. About how he always said the cabin wasn't just a place, it was a lesson. You take care of something, it gives back, he told me once. You neglect it, it falls apart. Simple as that. I used to think he meant the roof, the dock, the generator. But now, I think he meant the people inside it, too. Me, Joel, maybe even himself. Because the truth is, none of us ever really owned that cabin. We just carried it for a while. And now, it was my turn. Not as a prize, but as a promise. The fall after I reclaimed the cabin was the first time in years I felt like I could breathe. I took a week off work. Left the emails unanswered, the phone on silent. Just me, Ethan, and the slow hush of leaves turning gold. We spent most days outside. Mornings on the water, fishing off the dock. Afternoons raking leaves, chopping wood, learning how to listen to quiet without needing to fill it. One morning, Ethan asked if we could hike up to Pine Rock, the overlook Dad used to take us to when we were kids. I hadn't been up there since before the funeral. Not since the summer before Joel and I started drifting apart like two boats in opposite currents. We packed trail mix and a thermos of hot chocolate, and by noon, we were sitting on the ridge, watching the lake glitter below us. Did Grandpa really come here alone? Ethan asked. I nodded. All the time. Said it helped him think. Ethan was quiet for a bit. Then he said, "Did you and Uncle Joel ever come up here together?" And I didn't know how to answer that. Because we had, once. Years ago. But not in peace. It was after a fight. About Mom. About who Dad blamed. Joel said I didn't understand. That I'd always gotten the easy version of things. I said he didn't know how to let go. He stormed off before we reached the top. I stayed. Didn't speak to him for a month. I looked at Ethan now, his face still soft with childhood, but his questions getting sharper. Yeah, I said finally. We did. But it didn't go great. He sipped his hot chocolate. You think you'll be friends again someday? I smiled at that. Not because it was naive, but because it was hopeful. And maybe, for the first time in years, I wasn't quick to shut the door on that idea. Maybe, I said. Sometimes people drift. Doesn't mean they don't find their way back. Back at the cabin that night, I found something wedged behind a beam in the boathouse. It was a box, small, metal, rusted at the hinges. Inside were a few loose Polaroids, a folded note in Dad's handwriting, and a pair of dog tags I'd never seen before. The note was short, faded from years of dust and weather. For the boys. In case I'm not here when it matters most. There wasn't much else. Just the dog tags, his father's, I think, and a photo of Joel and me in front of the cabin, arms slung over each other's shoulders, both of us sunburned and smiling like the world hadn't found a way to wedge itself between us yet. I didn't cry, but I felt it. That ache behind the sternum that only comes from remembering something that was once whole. The next morning, I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote Joel a letter. Not long, not dramatic, just honest. Found one of Dad's old boxes. Thought you might want to see what he left behind. I made a copy of the note. Sent one of the photos. Didn't say anything about forgiveness, or blame, or what came next. Just, in case you ever want to come back. I didn't hear from him for a week. Then two. Then one afternoon, Ethan came running in from the mailbox with a postcard in his hand. It was from Joel. No return address. Just a picture of the lake. On the back, one line. Pine Rock's still there. Might see you soon. I stared at those words for a long time. Not because they were poetic, but because they were his. And maybe, for two brothers raised in silence, that was enough. It was early spring when Joel came back. The trees hadn't fully bloomed yet, just a hint of green on the tips, like the forest itself was still deciding whether it was safe to start over. Ethan was inside, helping me patch a window screen, when I saw the silhouette on the porch. He didn't knock, just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking around like it hurt a little, the way returning to something you left always does. I opened the door, didn't say a word. He nodded. You still keep coffee in the old tin? He asked. I stepped aside. Still tastes like dirt, I said. But yeah. He laughed. Once. Quiet. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like we were keeping score. We sat out back, on the edge of the dock, two steaming mugs between us and nothing but water stretching wide and steady in front of us. He asked how Ethan was doing in school. I asked how his new job was going, something in construction, out west. Neither of us brought up the will, or the fight, or the months where we didn't speak, because some things don't need rehashing. They just need room. Joel pulled something from his coat pocket, a small, folded piece of paper. I recognized the edges before I even saw what it was. Dad's note. The one from the box I'd found behind the beam. You were right to send this, he said, voice low. I forgot what his writing looked like. We sat with that for a while. Then Joel said something I didn't expect. I didn't just take the cabin because I thought you didn't want it. I took it because I didn't know how to share something that reminded me of everything I got wrong. He looked down at his hands. I wasn't the son he wanted me to be. You were. He trusted you with things. I always felt like I had to earn it, and I never figured out how. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence hold it. Then I said, he didn't want us to be the same. That was the whole point. He needed both of us. For different reasons. Joel nodded slowly. Maybe. I didn't know how to carry him without competing with your version of him. That hit me harder than I thought it would. Because deep down, I'd felt the same way. I just didn't act on it the way he did. That evening, Ethan joined us on the dock. He handed Joel a small photo, the one we took last fall, rebuilding the steps. This one's going on the wall, Ethan said. Joel turned it over in his hand like it was heavier than it looked. Then he smiled, not wide, not forced. Just enough to let a little light in. You did a good job, he said. We did, Ethan corrected him. Then looked at me. All of us. And that's when I realized, maybe the point of all of this wasn't to fix what got broken. Maybe it was just to stop pretending it never was. That night, I pulled down the old tin box from the mantel, the one that held scraps of history now. Dad's note, Grandpa's dog tags, a list of songs we used to sing in the truck. I added something new. Joel's postcard. And I wrote a note of my own, folded it inside. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's saying, I'll carry this with you now. Then I closed the lid. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the cabin, and everything it held, was whole again. Not perfect, but real. And finally, fully ours.